Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in this video today, and today the Houston Texans play the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round, and I'm so ready for it. I'm so ready. Literally 5 years ago, I had heartbreak, absolute heartbreak. I think it's really probably the only time I've cried to a Texans game, and now 5 years later, this game is for the the 12-year-old kid, 12, 13-year-old kid that had heartbreak when the Texans lost. It's not for the almost adult I am now watching the CJ Stroud and the Texans doing what they're doing or do what they potentially could do today. It's the 12, 13-year-old kid who saw Deshaun Watson and the Texans get off to an amazing start and absolutely blow it, and then the franchise just sink after that. So let's get it. Look, the odds are not in our favor. I'm not gonna be. I'm not. I'm gonna be confident, and I'm gonna be positive about the team today, but I'm not going to lie. The odds are not in the favor. Let's get to some quick facts. The Chiefs are the Patrick Mahomes is 7-1 in his career in playoff games in freezing weather. The Texans in their franchise are 0-4. That's a quick starter. Also, moving on. This is a big one right here. This is a big one that helps the Chiefs out. Clay Martin will be reffing this game today. If you did not know this, Clay Martin is a referee that the Chiefs have never lost a game with in the Patrick Mahomes era since if he is reffing them. So that's another big help for the Chiefs. So cold weather and the Clay Martin, that's two things. Also let's get into the fact that the Texans have a terrible offensive line and the Chiefs have a great defensive line. What does that equal? Pressure for CJ Stroud. And when CJ Stroud gets pressure, sometimes he panics. I really hope today, if he gets pressure, because it's going to happen with that Chiefs defensive line and our offensive line, I hope he starts to run more. CJ Stroud showed some really good things last week with his legs. He needs to do that again. He ran for over 40 rushing yards last week against the Chargers. It might be a little bit harder to do that against this Chiefs defense today, but you know what? That is something he should have been doing more all season with how bad his offensive line is, because you just got to take off sometimes with how bad the line is and how bad the pressure gets. So, yeah, all right. But like I said, yeah, odds aren't in our favor. But I'm specifically talking to the idiots we have for sports media when I say this. The Chiefs are probably going to win today, right? Y'all been saying that all week. The Chiefs are going to win. The Chiefs are going to win. Yes, you are probably right. The Chiefs are probably going to win today. And I hate to say that as a Texans fan. You are probably right. But here's where you're wrong. It's the idiots like Stephen A. Smith, who I think is a very knowledgeable person. I don't know why he would say this, but the Texans have zero chance. I don't understand that. It's any given Sunday, and I think there are some games where someone has no chance. But let's not act like the Texans just got 4 interceptions on a quarterback who only threw 3 interceptions in the entire freaking season. Or the fact that they've made some of the best quarterbacks in this league look absolutely terrible. Jared Goff, who's had such a good year, threw 5 picks against this team. Tua, who... Look, I can act like Tua had some amazing season, but Tua doesn't throw a lot of picks. He threw like 3 or 4 against us. Quarterbacks have go to Josh Allen. Josh Allen would probably have an MVP award if he had a good game against us. But no, he threw 9 for 30 and had his worst career game of his career. So, let's not act like this defense can win them this game. Their offense sure as hell can. If the Texans had a terrible defense, this game would be cooked at halftime. But with this defense that's coming on the field, and this defense being a little bit more healthy than it was the last time these two teams faced each other, this will be a competitive game that the Texans can win. But there are many factors that need to go in their favor. We can start with the big factor that I think is unlikely to help them is the referees. That's one thing. Then we can also go to the next thing of, the offensive line. I think those are the two biggest factors in this game is the refs and the offensive line. the two biggest enemies the Texans have in this game are the referees and their own offensive line. But but before I get to injuries and get to predictions, what the Texans need to do in this game, I want to just think about, just recap some of the things that people said on media this week. Stephen A. Smith said there's 0% chance for the Texans to win this game. Like I said, it's not. The Texans don't have a great chance to win this game, but it's not zero. And then also, Paul Pierce, who great basketball player. I have no idea why in the world he's talking about football, but he works at FS1, and he decided to say that, hey, I work 15 miles away from the studio. I will walk to work if the Texans win this game. That's just stupid. It's stupid. And then it's everything that everybody's been saying. Stephen A. Smith saying that the Commanders have a better chance to beat the Lions than the Texans to beat the Chiefs. I think the Commanders are a better team than we are, but I'll tell you this. I think it's a different exposure for a rookie quarterback to go win a playoff game than a sophomore quarterback, and I also think the Lions are a way better team to beat the Chiefs. So I think the Texans have an easier team to beat than the Commanders do with the Lions. So, anyways, moving on from all the stupid media, guys, let's get to injuries. We'll go over injuries for both teams. It's a full list. It's been that way all year. Tegan Quintanar. The Texans have tight end. Their tight ends 2, 3, and 4 all on IR. Kate Stover, Brevin Jordan, and Tegan Quintoriano are all out. Joe Mixon is questionable, but is expected to play. Aziz Al-Shahar is questionable, but expected to play. That's the big thing, I think, in this game. That's the big difference. Not having him in Week 16 when these two teams went up against each other, that will be a big factor right there. Having him back on the field, watch out. Like I mentioned, Kate Stover's out. Robert Woods is questionable with a hip injury. And how short this team is at wide receiver, really need him. Earlier in the season, when I was talking about wide receiver depth in the preseason, I did not think I'd be saying in the divisional round, we really need Robert Woods. I definitely did not expect to say that. Obviously, Tank's injured. Going back to play. It's not just going back to play where the Texans had heartbreak 5 years ago. It's going back to play where Tank had his injury and winning for him. We're not just winning for all the Texans fans that broke their hearts, had their hearts broken 5 years ago. We're also going to win this game for what happened to Tank. I'm not saying that's the Chiefs' fault or anything. It's just happened there. All right. Then Jamal Hill's on IR, hamstring. Jimmy Ward, both our safeties are out. Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie. But I will say the guys that have replaced them have been really good. So they're not as good as Jimmy Ward and Jalen Petrie, but the replacements have been really good. Stephon Diggs is, of course, out for the season. Case Keenum and Brevin Jordan are out for the year. That's it. We'll go to Chiefs injuries next. Load that up. But, like I said, this will be an interesting game. It's not going to be a blowout, I don't think, at all. If everybody's saying this is going to be a 20-point win for this Chiefs team, it's not going to be like that. And they said that last time we faced them, and it was a really close game. We only lost by 8 points, and we were tied, or basically tied with them most of the game until Tank Dell got injured. But anyways, let's get to the Chiefs injuries. McCole Hardman's on IR. Watson, their cornerback, is questionable with a lower leg injury. Thomas is on NFIR, dealing with a chest injury. Sky Moore's on IR. Rashee Rice is obviously out for the season. So the Chiefs were pretty healthy for this game. So what do the Texans need to do to win this game? I'm going to start off with a couple things. It's key factor number one, you think I'd say rest, but I think key factor number one is the offensive line. I feel like the Texans have probably beat themselves more times this year with their own offensive line beating them than the refs have helped the Chiefs. I know that sounds crazy to say because the refs helped the Chiefs a lot. That might, you know what? Never mind. Let's not say that because the Chiefs won 15 games this year, and the Texans lost 7. But most of the losses the Texans had this year was because of their terrible offensive line. There's probably about 1 or 2 losses that their offensive line wasn't the problem, but most of their losses this year have been the problem of the offensive line. And there's been quite a few wins this year for this Texans team where the offensive line is still a problem. So sure, the Texans can still win games with the offensive line, but you're not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs if you have problems with the offensive line, and that's just something I don't see happening. And I think the only positive thing I could find if the Texans just absolutely get crushed today is that, and I think it's going to happen anyways, is that the Texans get really aggressive about making moves with the offensive line in the offseason. Like, we keep drafting guys, but I feel like there needs to be more. You got to go get a veteran. I know there's a guy in Kansas City I'd really like, Trey Smith. But you know what? We're going to keep it positive. The offensive line is trash, but I think the Texans have showed they can still win a game if they still play like complete crap. But another thing I think this team needs to do today is you need CJ to run the ball more. That was effective. He ran for over 40 rushing yards. Like I mentioned, the offensive line is terrible. Instead of running around trying to find an open man when you really only have one elite wide receiver open in Nico Collins or a solid tight end in Dalton Schultz open and a bunch of other solid wide receivers outside of Nico and Dalton, run. Don't scramble around looking for somebody to get open and take a sack or get hit and just throw it away but get hit at the same time. Run. Like that is effective instead of taking sacks or taking hits on throwaways. So that's what CJ Stroud needs to do more is run the ball like he did this past week. All right. Another thing I would think is just the defense needs to do what they did last week. And I can't guarantee the Texans will win if the defense does what they did last week because you will also need help from the offense. It's a two-way thing. But if the defense does what they did last week, and the offense can pull up around 3 or 4 scores, the Texans could win this game. Or maybe more than 3 or 4 scores. But you know what? I think the Texans could win with 3 or 4 scores if the defense did what they did last week. And then the other thing is the refs, which is quite impossible. Let me know your thoughts on the Texans-Chiefs divisional round playoff game in the comment section, and peace out.